Alrighty, here we go. First question asks for the GCF of this polynomial. So the first thing we look at is the coefficients, or the numbers in front of the variables. Now that's a 24, negative 12, and an 8. What number goes into 24, negative 12, and 8? Yeah, 2 does. Yeah, 4 does. In fact, 4 looks like it's the biggest number that goes into all of those. So it's what number is evenly divisible by 24, by 12, and by 8. And the biggest number that goes into that's evenly divisible by all of those is 4. Okay. We also have to look at the variables. So let's look at the x variable. Oops. Let's look at the x variable. We have an x to the 4th, we have an x to the 1st. But this guy has no x's. So x isn't common. The C in GCF stands for common. So the x is not common to all those things. So therefore, there's going to be no x in my GCF. Now let's look at the y's. All 3 terms have a y, so a y will be part of my GCF. Now, how many y's do they all have in common? So that's how many y's do they all at least have? And the answer to that is y squared. It's the lowest amount of y's, of exponents for the y's that we have. So they all at least have a y squared. The second term has a little bit more than a y squared. It's got a y cubed. And the third term also has a y cubed. So at the very least, they all have a y squared. So our GCF is 4y squared because every term is evenly divisible by 4 and also y squared. Cool, cool. The next one, we're going to use a GCF, and I'm going to do it the way we did it in class. So in class, we talked about these boxes. And so this box has a negative 5x to the 4th. The next one has a negative 25x to the 3rd. And the last one is a negative 15x squared. Cool, cool. So it's what goes into all of those. Do you notice that they all have a negative sign? Okay. Do you notice that they all have you could divide all of them by 5. So, and also they all have at least an x squared. They have at least an x squared. So our GCF is negative 5x squared. It's kind of like the previous question. But with this one, we're also supposed to figure out what the rest of the factor is. So we have our GCF of negative 5x squared. But we got to see what's left over after we factor out that negative 5x squared. Okay? So I want you to think about this. After you factor out the negative 5 from the first term, all right, or in other words, what would you multiply negative 5 by to get negative 5? And the answer is just 1. Now let's look at the x's. Well, that's an x squared that I'm pulling out of x to the 4th. So there's going to be an x squared left. And you can think of that as, hey, x squared times x squared would give us this x to the 4th. So there's a couple different ways to look at these problems. The next one, I'm factoring out a negative 5 from a negative 25. It's like dividing. Negative 25 divided by negative 5 is a positive 5. Now let's look at our x's. I had an x cubed and I factored out an x squared. So that left me with an x to the 1st power. Cool. Next one was a negative 15, and I'm factoring out a negative 5. So negative 15 divided by negative 5 is a positive 3. And I'm factoring x squared from x squared. Well, it's just 1. So they kind of cancel out, right? And you can always double check your work by multiplying. Alrighty. Up next is one of the easy ones. We have to solve it, and it's already factored for us. So we're going to just take each piece and make that piece equal to 0. I didn't leave myself very much room to work here. Here, let's take this and work it over here. 7x minus 3 equals 0. It's a little two-step equation. Add 3 to both sides. 7x equals 0 plus 3. And then divide by 7. X equals 3/7. That's one of them. And then the other one would have been this x plus 9. That needs to equal 0 as well. So I'm gonna do my work off to the side over here. X plus 9 equals 0. You could probably do this one in your head. If you can't do it in your head, then subtract 9 from both sides, and x equals -9. So I do have two solutions, 3/7 and a -9. Cool, cool. Up next, we have one that doesn't equal 0. So before I can get started on this one, I do have to make it equal 0. So I'll do that by moving this 3x to the other side. So now it says 8x squared minus 3x equals 0. Cool, they have to equal 0 first. Now, this one's not factored like number 3. So you do need to pull out the factor. What do they have in common with each other? They both have an x. So pull out an x. When you pull an x out of 8x squared, you still have 8x. When you pull an x out of 3x, you still have 3. All right. So, again, we have to make each piece equal to 0. So this one's kind of crazy easy. Just making the first piece equal to 0. I got x equals 0. Okay, too easy. Now the other one, though, this guy, 8x minus 3, he needs to equal 0 as well. But he's going to be a little bit more work. So I'm going to take this, I'm going to put it all the way over here on the right. 8x minus 3 equals 0. I'm going to add 3 to both sides. And I'm going to divide by 8. So x equals 3/8. So there's two solutions for that one. Oh, so that one was a little bit, had a couple more steps because we had to make it equal to 0 and we had to factor it. So, more. All right, this last one, they give us an area. So I could do a big box here. 10y to the 4th, 8y squared, -4y. All right, and then I have to think what goes into each of these numbers. What goes into 10, 8, and -4? And I believe it's a 2. All right. I know 4 goes into 4 and 8, but it doesn't go into 10, so I think 2 is the best I got. Now look at the variables. They all have a y. In fact, the only thing that they have in common is a y to the first power. Okay? You have to use the lowest exponent of the y, and that's first power. All right, so next up, we're going to see what our... So that's our GCF, that's our width. So 2y to the first power. Now we got to find the length, the top part here. This top part. So let's factor out that 2y and see what's left over. Factoring out a 2 from a 10, so basically saying 10 divided by 2 is 5. Factoring out a y from y to the 4th would leave me with y to the 3rd. Okay, factoring out a 2 from the 8, say basically dividing 8 by 2 is 4. And factoring a y out of that y squared leaves me with y to the 1st. And the last one, -4 divided by 2 is -2. And then I'm factoring a y from y, and that does cancel out. So fully factored, I have my GCF for part A, and then for part B, I've got the leftovers, 5y cubed plus 4y minus 2. Came from the top here. Cool, cool. That's part A.